Elias Crane wiped the grease from his hands onto his already stained coveralls and squinted at the holographic contract floating before him. The Nexus station's dim lighting made everything look suspicious, but the offer seemed legitimate enough. King Vialor IX himself, ruler of the Calithan Empire spanning 47 star systems, needed a mechanic. The pay? A decommissioned royal scout ship. For a human scraping by on the edge of civilized space, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. "You will repair my vessel," King Valor's translator relayed, his four eyes blinking in sequence as his tentacled form shifted in the throne-like hoverchair. "In exchange, the Star Whisper-class scout becomes yours." Elias didn't hesitate. He'd been stuck on the station for 3 years, fixing broken atmospheric processors and recalibrating gravity generators for species that barely acknowledged his existence. A ship meant freedom. It meant going home. "Deal," Elias said, pressing his thumb to the contract's biometric seal. The king's mandibles clicked in what might have been satisfaction. "Excellent. Your assignment awaits in Hangar 7 Beta." When Elias arrived at the hangar, his heart sank. There was no ship. Instead, a massive containment crate sat in the center of the bay, frost crystallizing on its metallic surface. Warning symbols in 12 different galactic languages covered every surface. A medical officer, some insectoid species Elias didn't recognize, stood nearby, wringing its multiple appendages nervously. "Where's the ship?" Elias demanded. The medical officer's translator stuttered. The king's orders were clear. "You are to repair the contents of this container. Your payment awaits upon successful completion." Elias approached the crate, his boots echoing in the empty hangar. Through the frosted viewport he could make out a shape, large, quadrupedal, and covered in matted white fur. "Not a ship, a creature." "This is a living being," Elias said flatly. "Yes, a Lunara wolf from the frozen reaches of Corvath 7, the king's former pet. It contracted Varaxian rot 3 cycles ago. The condition is terminal. No Calithan physician will touch it. The disease is highly contagious to most species." The medical officer backed away further. "You will dispose of it humanely. This is your repair job." Elias felt anger rising in his chest. He'd been deceived. The king had no intention of giving him a ship for actual work. This was a convenient way to have a human handle a dangerous disposal without risking Calithan lives. Humans were expendable in this part of the galaxy. He should have walked away, should have torn up that contract and gone back to his cramped quarters. But through the viewport the wolf's eye opened, pale blue, clouded with fever but distinctly aware. It looked at him with an intelligence that made Elias's breath catch. "Get me the medical database entry for Varaxian rot," Elias said quietly. "Human, the disease is incurable. The database, now." 12 hours later, Elias had converted half the hangar into a makeshift medical bay. Turns out that while Varaxian rot was deadly to most carbon-based species, human immune systems classified it as a minor fungal infection. The treatment was laughably simple by Earth standards: aggressive antifungals, temperature regulation, and time. The hard part was gaining the wolf's trust. Elias moved slowly, speaking in low tones as he entered the containment field wearing a hazmat suit he didn't actually need. The Lunara wolf growled, a sound that vibrated through the deck plates, but it was weak. "Dying." "Easy there," Elias murmured. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm going to help if you'll let me." He'd worked with animals before. His family had run a veterinary clinic back on Earth before the colony ships left. The principles were the same: respect, patience, and genuine care. Over the next 2 weeks, Elias administered treatments, cleaned infected wounds, and sat with the wolf during its fevered nights. He talked to it about Earth, about dogs and wolves, and how humans had lived alongside them for thousands of years. Slowly, impossibly, the wolf began to heal. Its white fur regained its luster, the infected patches closing with new growth. The fever broke. Its pale eyes cleared, becoming sharp and alert. It began to eat, then to stand, then to pace the hangar with returning strength, and it never left Elias's side when he was present. King Valor IX arrived on the 21st day, expecting to find a disposed carcass and a human ready to be paid off with some cheap shuttle. Instead, he found Elias sitting on the hangar floor, the fully recovered Lunara wolf resting its massive head in the mechanic's lap. "Impossible," the king's translator barked. "Varaxian rot is incurable." Elias stood slowly, The wolf rising with him, protective, powerful, and utterly loyal. Not to humans. We've been dealing with fungal infections since before we left our caves. You wanted me to repair your problem, I did. Now about that Star Whisper class scout. The king's tentacles writhed in what Elias had learned to recognize as agitation. The deal was for disposal, not... The contract says repair. I have 3 witnesses from station security who heard the terms, and Galactic commercial law is very clear about contract manipulation. Elias crossed his arms. You wanted to use a human as disposable labor. Instead, you're going to learn why humans don't abandon things just because they're difficult to fix. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, King Valor's mandibles clicked in resignation. The ship is yours, Elias Crane, though I suspect I have been outmaneuvered. Just treated fairly, Your Majesty. As Elias walked toward his new ship, the Lunara wolf padding beside him, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Pride. Not just in what he'd accomplished, but in what it meant to be human. They didn't give up. They didn't discard the broken or the sick. They fixed things, even when the galaxy said it was impossible. Behind him, King Valor watched the pair depart, and for the first time in his long reign he felt something unfamiliar. Respect for the strange, stubborn species from the third planet of an unremarkable star. Humans, he decided, were far more dangerous than their primitive technology suggested. They cared. And in a cold galaxy built on transaction and convenience, compassion was the most disruptive force of all.